Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Experience Sprint Retro or Iteration Retro. Today is May 12th. We'll be going over the last few weeks of work, what went well and what improvements we want to make. And I think up first is Tyler.
Yeah, I think I've seen other people agree with this and talk about it in previous meetings. I really think that we just totally rocked it on these event components, the integration, and I think we all deserve to feel very proud about that. Because it's a big one. It wasn't totally planned for. We started this iteration. We're like, oh right, we gotta carve out time for this, and then we did. And I feel like we did that, and also met some unexpected things as well, and resolve them. And I think we're really tracking for if we keep tracking at that sort of pace and problem solving, I think that we will be in a good place. And I just think that we should all feel really proud about that. And I appreciate all the support that everyone has been giving towards that effort, because it's a big one, and it's also it's great. So thanks everyone, and good job. Laura?
We had a meeting this morning, myself, Jess, Steve, and Brandon. Michael has, I guess, decided to kind of split up the 15 pages OKR that Stephen and Brandon were leading and kind of divvying up some of that work so Jess and I can take it on because our OKR has shrunk a little bit in scope. So having that kind of split feels good, feels like we're being a little bit heard. I think we were a little concerned that, 15 pages was a lot. We weren't sure how far we'd be able to get on all of them. So this should help divide up the work, but yeah, good collaboration. And then Stephen is next.
I'm going to say the exact same thing, more or less in a nutshell. It was good to just collaborate, break things up. Feels a bit better distributed, just a bit more manageable and more attainable. I think at the start, it just looked like one big giant hill that we had to climb over 3 months, and it didn't really feel like there was actually any path or plan. Now there does. So yeah, feeling a bit more comfortable with that. So very happy.
Sweet. And then we have a few things to improve on. I think Lauren is up first.
Yeah, some high priority items crept in this iteration, and like the unfiltered blog, and then renaming marketing to uncategorized are just examples. I think this is gonna increase throughout the year. So it's not like this is gonna stop happening. I think it's gonna happen more. So what do we want to do as a team so we reserve capacity for this? Or do we just deprioritize when it happens?
I felt, and I see Laura's typing. Do you want to go first, Laura, as you type?
Yeah, I was just saying that I think Lauren and Brandon are known to be on this team. So I think if there are problems, a lot of times they take on the brunt of it because it's just someone reaches out to them directly. I had no idea this was even happening. I'm in my own little world, flowers and sunshine, building my components. So yeah, I don't know how to holler that we can help too,
I think that segues nicely into what my thoughts were for this is over the past 3 or 4 iterations, I realized that I was over committing myself each time. And so this last one, I under committed myself, and I'm okay, we talked about event components, and I was all right, that's the top level thing I have to do. So I took on 3 or 4 of those, and then one additional thing that was just do it. It's a quick thing. But I knew that I had more capacity, and I was okay, I'll probably just pick up more of the event components. And then the unfiltered change came through, and instead of picking up an event component, and I did drop the other one, or I'm pushing it back to tomorrow instead. But I was oh cool, I planned for this by under committing, right? And I don't know if that's systematically going to work, but we have a note in our planning document to be conscientious of actual capacity, and and plan for the unplanned. And I think I found that this iteration, honestly, doing the unfiltered block did not change any of my deliverables for the commit event. Zero impact for me, and I feel really good about that. And that's specifically because I committed to I gave myself that time that I anticipated I would do a little extra on commit, but it turned out that I serviced some other urgent thing instead. So that worked out super well. It's not very systematic because part of that was just me getting lucky. So I don't know if I don't know if that's actually I don't know what the systematic process answer is, but I do know that our directive that we've been trying, that I think we say every time in planning of like, hey, give yourself more time than you think you need. I think that like gives us some reserve capacity. And I know that Brandon is also doing a lot of good like actual sprint point math to say like, here's how much work we can actually do. And like, I know that he's accounting for some of these unaccountable situations, but yeah, I don't know. Just being mindful. I don't have a better answer. I see Jess has stuff written down.
Yeah, and just to add to that, because that's a great point, but and Lauren already said this, like deprioritize something. But I think also it's important for whoever's asking the thing to make sure they understand that you have to deprioritize something and be like, okay, we can do this new change A, but that means we can't do change B. Like you have to kind of pick and choose. And they might be okay with that. They're like, yeah, A is really important. Let's do that. Or they might like be like, oh shoot, we really needed to do B also. So like, let's stick with our original plan. I've seen it go both ways. It just depends on what the thing is. And just, I didn't write it here, but I was just thinking too, like, maybe next quarter, we're still iterating on how we do our OKRs, but something we can also think about is being better about both weighting and like stack ordering the importance of things so that we know if something comes up and it's, you know, a weight of 3, we can like look at what else is a weight of 3 in our backlog and is like the least important and maybe like take that out. So something for the future.
I know that like sometimes things come like if something small comes up on like the is it known Slack channel or something, if it's related to our team, a lot of times like one of us will see it or Michael will tag like at digital experience and we'll kind of hop on it. Is there any way to like leverage like if someone gets pulled into something that they're really not sure they can take on to like hand it off to one of us? I don't know. I feel like the unfiltered stuff had to be like a full stack person. Like it's, I don't know.
I would recommend if you're unsure about something to just go through Michael and ask him to prioritize for you. I like the idea of under committing and then having that project that, you know, if you do have more capacity to know, okay, look, I can bust through this and add some more like components. We luckily have that event project right now where it's easy to like devote extra time to. And maybe we'll always have a project like that that we can always work on. Or tech debt. You can always work on tech debt.
I don't know. I wrote a point really quickly that I'm terrible at time estimation, but I just feel like there's like a root problem that still like has to be figured out, you know, like a root problem and a root solution. Because it's like, I don't think it's reasonable for you all to be like, let me reserve time in anticipation for like things that come up in the middle of the iteration at all times. I feel like that's a little unfair to you all personally.
I agree with that, but when these things are coming up, it's like, we need it done tomorrow. We need it done in like next 2 days. I don't know what the solution is there, but I think it's going to keep happening.
Yeah, I think that like my outlook on that has been like I think you have like I think it's a really good point, and that's like, and I wish that like I have ever worked in a place like that, and like I don't mean to like be dismissive of it, because I think that is like the right way to work is to be like really clear about scope and like boundaries and like have a good sense of like what you're gonna do. But I also feel like it's like there's a place we live in right now where we can try and get better at that, and honestly like GitLab isn't too terrible at that like compared to other places I've seen. And I think there's a lot of value for us as like collaborators to like be flexible, and I think that, you know, strategies like under committing at the outset of each iteration are ways that like we can be highly collaborative with other teams who don't have like a good venue, because like some of these things are like, it would be reasonable if they came into our planning process at the beginning, but either they don't know, which is reasonable because they have their own processes to know, or like they couldn't know because they couldn't know that they were going to need, like, you know, at the end, like we're a few levels away from the actual unexpected pressure, right? Like, because I think this would be different if we had, you know, like if Michael was requesting mid iteration every single time, like, hey, here's some unplanned work. But like we are, you know, collaborating with folks who are working with different pressures, and I think it makes us really valuable if we're able to be flexible. But I don't know, just it's like a balancing act. And that's not a systematic answer. And I also feel like I don't want to dismiss your really good point of like it's not great to have to like always be ready for unexpected work, but like it feels good if you get it right because people like it. And if you set your own expectations about like what you think you're going to get done, because you know that like either something will come up or nothing does and you can do extra, like maybe that feels good for your sense of productivity too. So just a counterpoint to what I think is your very reasonable perspective.
Okay, I think you have the next point, Tyler.
Cool. Super small one, not like huge, like I noticed our Ruby version or the .ruby version file, which just like informs some like automatic like Ruby version managers of like what version to use and like our CI pipeline. Unrelated MR came through and it like rolled it back. I left a comment for the person who made it. My guess is that like they had some issues with the 3.0 migration and there was a quick fix for them that 2.6.6 worked. And so they're like, oh, cool, I'll just do this and it works. And that's a super reasonable thing to do if you like are, you know, not working with that every single day. And it's a quick fix to roll it back to 3.0, but it's also like some unnecessary, it's not very efficient. like we shouldn't have to do that. Like we should set the Ruby version and it shouldn't change until people who like need to set the version want to update it. And so I mentioned a note here about like, can we use like, I've never used the code owners feature. And I remember someone said somewhere that like, it doesn't work reliably, or maybe I misheard something. So I'm wondering like, can we use code owners on like, and like this would be good for like our Webpack config and like our middleman config and like Ruby, where like things that impact our day-to-day that someone might reasonably say like, oh, cool, I'll just like edit this to make my thing work, and not like see the cascading challenges that happen afterwards. Anyways, Barker, you mentioned there's a related comment. Are we able to use code owners? Can we do that for this?
Are we using it in slippers? Like you can't merge something until it gets an approval, or is that a repository ride?
I think that's repository. I don't think it's like per file. So I think the challenge, like with this, the person who rolled our Ruby version back, like is a maintainer, so they can just change anything, which is super fine, generally speaking. But like, it also means that nothing came up that was like, hey, like, here's a group of people that are impacted by the Ruby version file, right? And I think that's the thing is like we do have a lot of maintainers who are not working day to day with the things that like sometimes they accidentally or unknowingly change.
So that came up during the initial discussion of the unfiltered blog, and that's the issue I commented there about permissions and workflows, and if it would be possible to set like a group of people as approvers for MRs in certain areas of the repo. I think it would be beneficial for us to look into this and research the code owners and all of the settings and features that GitLab has, because that's going to increasingly be something that we're going to need to know about.
Yeah, for sure. Okay. I made an action item for myself to do that at the beginning of next iteration. I'm taking a vacation second week, so I've got a short week and I can do some of these like miscellany tasks. So thanks.
Cool. I think that's it for Retro. Thank you so much for joining.